Okay, so welcome to Sunday Night Live. Cheryl's taking the night off. Her shoulder is killing her and she's relaxing. But I do have a good friend, Kristy Durso, with us. And Kristy, I need to talk to people here for just a second, then we'll get started. Because we had Rhonda that showed up early. And I said hi to her. And then Pam said hi to everybody. And she said hi to us too. But I said something about Rhonda getting there early. And she said, yeah, the early bird gets the worm. And Rhonda, I'm not sure why you want the worm. Unless it's the worm in the bottle of mezcal. Maybe that's the worm you're looking for. I'm just not sure. But anyway, so Kristy, I thought we'd talk about, we have so much to talk about. But I thought we'd start with, let's talk about, by the way, anybody that has questions for Kristy, put them in the chat. And for those that are watching the replay, put where you're from in there too, please, and your questions. We'll get an answer for you. And by the way, there won't be a show next week because we will be sailing out of Miami on the Ascent, and I'm not sure I'll have coverage. Okay, so let's start with Cruise World. Cruise World was interesting, and I may be wrong, but that's the first one I've been to where they had any content dedicated to accessibility.
Well, this is the second year in a row that I've done a session, one of the small sessions on accessibility, but it is the first time that I am aware of that they've ever had somebody with a visible disability up on the main stage. So it was just really an honor, and I was just very moved that they asked me to do that session and to be able to talk about accessibility in a mainstream conversation and not just a side conversation.
Yeah, I thought that really they should have done your sessions out in the main auditorium. So let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the side session that you did, because I was in there and I was blown away. And let's start with, I loved how you started with the audience. So you want to tell our audience how it started?
So when I give my keynote speech, reframing accessibility, I start it the same way every time. I ask people in the audience to stand up when I name a disability in their family. By the time I get through naming all the disabilities, the entire room is standing. And then I ask them how they define disability. And then the fun part for me is they sit down as I tell them, as I name something I've done as a wheelchair user that they have not. And I've never gotten to the end of my slides and the end of my list and had anybody standing in the room.
Yeah. Like I said, I thought that all of that was just so amazing. You got a couple of comments here. Oh, so Rhonda said hi to Kristy. Pam said, way to go. And Rhonda said she was exactly looking for the worm in the bottle of mezcal. So, okay. I just wanted to make sure. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty amazing. And then I would ask if you could go ahead and relate the story that you shared about Rotan. And let's start with what led up to that story and then the whole story, because that was, I thought, good for the audience. And I thought it was, I thought it was a touching story.
Yes. So we were on Virgin's cruise that goes out over to the Mexican coast there. And we had a stop in Roatan. And I had struggled to find truly accessible excursions. Hold on just one second, please. We've got some background noise here. So anyway, so we had our cruise in the Gulf of Mexico, and one of the stops was Roatan, Honduras. And I had struggled to find anything accessible the whole leading up to it. And I finally, talking to another good friend of mine, Sylvia Longmire, she gave me a referral to this company that would take me to let me hold a sloth. And so I was very excited to find this. When we got on the ship, I'm looking forward to all the things. And you guys, if you've ever interacted with me at all, you know by now I am not exactly a quiet person or a timid person. So I'm rolling around as we've gotten on the ship, super excited about the fact that I've got this excursion to look forward to and looking forward to everything there is to see. And all of a sudden, I spot somebody who's a wheelchair user, and I can tell he's a permanent wheelchair user by the type of chair he's sitting in and his demeanor. And so I'm like, oh, look, I must go greet my people. So excuse me. And it was, so I rolled right up to him, like introducing myself, asking him how he likes the ship and all the questions you normally ask. And I asked about his excursions. I want to know if he had found anything accessible. And he goes, you know what? No, we don't need to do any excursions. We know they're not going to be accessible. We're not worried about that. So I said, you know what? You have to come with me in Rotan. We've got to go hold the sloths. It's completely accessible. You have to come with me. And he kind of thinks about it and goes, okay, we'll think about it. And so the morning of the excursion, I get a text and he said that they're in. So we're going down and going out, getting into the roll in van. We had a ramp, everything. It was great. It was able to accommodate 2 wheelchairs. And in talking to the company, they had another van of the same size, also able to accommodate 2 wheelchairs, and 2 minibuses that could each accommodate 4 wheelchairs. It blew my mind that this little bitty island has better transportation than we do in so much, even here in the United States. So
Yeah.
we keep going. We get to the place where the sloths are, and it is an amazing sanctuary. And I'm just like all in. And we roll into where the sloths are. And I turn around and look at my new friend, and he just looks terrified. He's like, I'm scared of a sloth. You guys, when you've been told no so much, I think there's a fear that can build up there when you get to try something new. But all of a sudden, he's got this sloth in his arms, and it's just the biggest smile. And it was just such a delight to see that overcoming of that fear and that anxiety that came with trying something new. And so we finish up with the sloths. He doesn't hold the monkeys or anything else, but he did the sloths, and we go on our way. And as we're going, our driver points out this uh, zip line that's being built, and I've always wanted to go zip lining, and I haven't been able to find someone to take me yet. And our driver looks at me and he goes, you want to go zip lining? I'm like, yeah, I want to go zip lining. And my new friend is sitting next to me. He goes, I almost went zip lining in Vegas, but at the last minute, I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, well then we have to do this. This is happening. We are going zip lining. So they take us back over to where the sloth encounter was, and it is not accessible. We can see the stairs, and we're kind of going, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know what we're doing. And out come these men who just put us on their backs and carry us up the stairs up to the platform where all the equipment was. And then 2 other guys came up behind them carrying chairs to set us in for each platform. So that way they could change us and put us on a different rope. And I just look at my friend, and you can see he's terrified, and he's kind of taking some deep breaths. The whites of his eyes are real big. And I said, you know what? You're going first. You have to go first. And let me tell you, it was amazing. He went down. I went down after him. And when we got when I could see his face, he had the biggest grin on his face. He had overcome that fear and gotten to do something grand. We did 11 different lines of that zip line. Each one was more beautiful than the next. And it was just sitting up straighter and having an even more confident smile each and every time. I don't think that encounter is only about that memory. I think that that whole experience will help him go forward and dream a little bit bigger in everything he does.
Yep, I agree 100%. So we got to say hi to some people. So we've got Rhonda Jacobs. Hi. We got C. We'll say hi to you. Pam. She said that she's talking about the place she was told about and was planning on going prior to COVID. Um, and we have not done the zip lining there, but we did do a sloth sanctuary in Rotan, and that is the most amazing thing. But we got in with the monkeys. The challenge with the monkeys are they steal stuff. I mean, they had you pretty much hand over anything that they might be able to see before you went in, and then they climb all over you and up on your head, and you could feed them peanuts. It was really cool. I love that as well. Rhonda Jacob said, amazing. And Pam loved your story. Yeah, I think that, and she liked it as well. And I think that's why we got started doing what we do. And I'm sure that's why you got started doing what you do. Because people that have disabilities, if they can't see that what they want to do is going to work for them, most of them are afraid. You and I have a mutual friend that is not doesn't seem to be afraid of anything. She was one that had the issue in New Zealand and had to crawl up. I thought you know her who I'm talking about, right? The name escapes me, and I'll think about it again in a minute. But and it was interesting too, by the way, that I had a conversation with the new place in Alaska that's building the accessible lodges. And
Yes, I talked
I
to
shared
them
your
as
name.
well.
So I already talked to her, and I shared Woodward. First
Corey
names are
Lee?
bothering me. Huh?
Corey Lee?
No, the one that's doing the rentable housing. That's is it
Yeah,
Lorraine Woodward?
Lorraine Woodard. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
And it was funny that
yes.
I had talked to her as well. But anyway, it's a small world. Okay,
Yeah.
so and I said, I love the fact that this gentleman, that it touched him, and that it got to, that it made him see that the world's more accessible than he thought. Yeah. So now
Yes.
let's talk about a couple of things you've done lately, and then I actually want to get to your family too. But and we have a doggy that wants to be on the
Yes.
show.
Oh
I used to
yeah.
have a doggy that thought he should be on the show too. Okay, let's banners. There we go. So tell us about NTA. 'Cause I know you were there last
So
week.
yes, it was a phenomenal experience. Earlier this year, I got to speak at their Contact conference. I was the keynote speaker for that event. And so they invited me to come to this one as a guest and to have a table to talk about some of the things that I can do for different destinations and tour operators and training that I can do. And then they also gave me the opportunity to speak a couple of times. So it was absolutely amazing. I got to do a Q&A with the tour operators where they got to ask me questions about how to make certain accommodations, what is the right thing, what is maybe something we can do in case of an emergency, and just various questions like that. And that was a great conversation. They want to do more and maybe a series of webinars. So really excited that they're wanting to learn more, especially in that group space. People like to travel in groups, and we need to have those groups available as well. And then I got to do a session where I got to do a bit of my keynote, that same thing. And they had a really, really great response. There were quite a few people there that I had not even talked to at that point who were sharing their stories with me. And we got to talk to tour guides who are learning how to better accommodate those with disabilities. And the response was really, truly incredible. And I am just so thankful to be talking about accessibility from a mainstream platform and not just in our own separate space anymore. So
I think that's amazing as well. And the tour operators is a great opportunity because so many of them are not particularly accessible, and it's not because the equipment can't be. I rode a bus in when we were going out of Moab. That it's the first time I'd seen this, but in the middle of the bus, they had a lift that popped out and lifted you up. The doors opened on the side of the bus, and you went in. And it looks like they could take care of at least 2 and maybe 4 wheelchairs, because 2 on each side, by just my moving seats around. So I thought that was pretty amazing. And then I was at NASA and took an accessible tour at NASA, and they have the exact same bus available with the opens out the side and lets people in and out. So it's nice to see that the equipment is starting to become better. You're not having to put your wheelchair underneath and get schlepped up into the carriage or something. But you can they can lift you and put you in a way that's comfortable and easy. I thought that was pretty amazing. I was surprised. One of the things, I'll talk about NASA for a minute. For anybody that hasn't been to Kennedy Space Center and that travels with challenges and with family members that have challenges, I was very impressed by the levels they go, because just besides having the mobility, it needs a lovies, mama. Gotta love the doggy. You've been gone. They in the events they had like what they classified it as far as noise and different things for people that have sensory disabilities. And that's the first time I'd seen that out, where, before you went in, it was there, and I didn't ask, I probably should have, about for folks that are blind or deaf, but, I was very impressed with the way they handled that they had gone that far to make things accessible.
we're seeing more and more museums take that approach, where they're making those notes and making it easier for people to know what they might need. And then the other thing that you might not have known is a lot of them are using programs like Culture City, which is the same one that Carnival Cruise Lines uses. And so they have, when you get to the museum, they have little grab bags there for them to check, for people to check out. And these are sensory bags that'll include a pair of sunglasses to make things, to reduce the light stimuli, then some noise dampening or noise canceling headphones, and a fidget or two, and different things just to help them navigate that space and reduce their anxiety as they go through it.
Yeah, I said, and I thought that was amazing. But I see so much now. I don't know if you've ever talked to Wade Binkley. He runs the Discovery Riverboat up in Fairbanks, and he has the riverboat is accessible on the bottom level, accessible restrooms, accessible things that they can do when it stops. They have like an Indian, a replica Indian village there. Rhonda wants to know what your fur baby's name is.
This is Gimli, because he's stout and has a fat face from Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Yeah. So very good. Anyway, but Wade, he has, they do have narration of the tour. So for somebody that's blind, they can get the narration. For somebody that's deaf, they have the script available so that they can read along as they're talking, and doing the narration. So I thought, again, and Alaska is not one of those places you necessarily think of it being accessible, but in reality, what I've found is most of the places are, and it's just, Ashley
They've
Olsen,
done a decent
right?
job in Alaska. We've really, we've had a great time, and we found something to do in each area, and they are really striving to do even more. So we really enjoy it.
Yep, I've got a group cruise that's going to Alaska in September next year, and we're going all the way to Fairbanks. So we'll ride the Riverboat Discovery, and I probably am going to stay over and work my way south on the railroad and visit some places to try to do some more documentation while I'm up there. And then it's from there. There is about 2 weeks later. There's the last southbound of the year out of Seward. So that's kind of what I'm thinking is I'll go down there and try to get as much done while I'm up there, because it's, you got to do it while you're there. Getting there is not easy. Okay, so I don't know if this was an outshoot of NTA or if it came about some other way, but you said you're going to Thailand. Do you want to tell us about that? How that happened?
Well, I have been asked to go to an accessibility conference in Thailand that is happening in December. So we're looking through all the logistics to see, but it is a conference for Thailand to talk about accessibility in tourism. So we're still looking through all the information, but just what a really cool thing for somebody to reach out and ask me to be part of that. It's really kind of you kind of go, wow, we actually are being heard. It is really happening that people want to hear more about this and are willing to learn. So for me, that was just really, really exciting to get that invitation. And so we'll see what they what I'll be sure to let you know everything that they have planned for the conference.
Yeah, that's really nice. And Thai food's my favorite food on the planet. I think I love Thai food.
Me too.
I had to learn how to cook it in El Paso because there wasn't a Thai restaurant in town. I had to go to Albuquerque or Phoenix to get Thai food. So I learned to cook Thai food. But anyway, so that is really cool. I am glad to see that. You might check with, Ian Price. I think Ian has been to Thailand. If you don't know him, I'll connect you with him. But I know he was definitely in Vietnam. Yeah, and the funny thing was he wears a respirator, and he had to rough it kind of in Cambodia because it was the ramp was a board into the back of a van. And that kind of stuff. But again, he's one of those intrepid people, that he's got these challenges, but he just goes and does. And that if I could share a message with our audience and anybody that's watching this. For those of you that are travel agents that have clients that might have disabilities, don't be bashful about finding, things that are accessible and encouraging them to try it. And for those of you that travel with challenges, I would say broaden your horizons and try things. That's what Cheryl and I do. We go out, we take her Will CI2 places it shouldn't go. Like on the wet sand and, and out by the beach. But, if it works, it works. And we have fun doing it, but it is such a cool thing. All right. So let's talk briefly about your family and how you guys like to travel.
Well, my middle child, Reese, is now in the military himself. And so he is stationed in Alaska. In Anchorage, actually. So he likes to travel and he likes the cold. So it's fantastic for him. The rest of us are all still here. And for those who intro to my family, my daughter has the same genetic condition I have, celiac disease, 30 food allergies, and she's on the spectrum. And then my youngest is he has fetal alcohol syndrome from his biomom and is cognitively and intellectually disabled from that. And then, of course, I am a full-time wheelchair user. And then there's my husband who is in the military. So we travel as often as we can. We feel that travel changes us in ways that nothing else can. And we think that it's the best way to help somebody heal. And it's the best way to help somebody learn beyond what anybody ever thought they would be capable of learning. And we've really found that to be true with our family for sure. We travel anywhere we can, as often as we can. And most of the time, if it's not all of us, it's my daughter, my youngest, and me traveling together. So.
Okay, so what do you find the easiest way for your family to travel? You have a preference of what's the easiest to coordinate all the things you need?
Um, do you mean like road trip versus airline cruise?
Yeah, yeah, like that would be
Okay.
a good way to categorize it.
We find cruising with our family to be a really excellent way to travel with everybody because everybody can find something that fits their needs. They're really pretty good at understanding at least dietary, they can at least be safe. And by the end of the trip, we've usually educated them on making dietary equitability the goal and not just an accommodation. So cruising works well, especially with that child who needs that timeout as quickly as possible. It's easy to get back in, and then you have your break days all planned out. So um, I think that's one of our favorite ways.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me because from what I've seen, especially when you have as many different challenges in a family, that that cruising, most of the cruise lines now have staff in the centers that are designed, that are trained to help children and help families with the children on the spectrum, that understand that because somebody behaves differently than they expect them to behave, it doesn't mean that there's a problem, but they just might need some special attention, those kinds of things. That was one of the things. Forget whether it was Carnival or Royal Caribbean that they use a rainbow lanyard. And they actually, that the thing that surprised me, one of them uses it on for people with Alzheimer's as well.
Hmm. So
Because again, they might.
that is the that that's Carnival with Culture City,
Okay.
and because there's their focus isn't just autism. Royal has an autism program which can cover other disabilities,
Yeah.
but um, they just call it their autism program. And Culture City is inclusive of all neurodivergencies in their marketing and the way that they approach things. So we just absolutely love that. Both Carnival and Royal have really taken those steps. They each have a different program, a certification, and they're proactively thinking about how to accommodate our guests who have that. So it's really really wonderful.
Yeah, it was interesting. Cheryl and I were on the Emerald Princess, did a Panama Canal cruise, and they were slow boarding us, and we were in the should have been among the very first people on board, both because of disabilities and status, and they delayed it. And what we found out is the reason they delayed boarding. There was supposed to have been a group of like 50 or so, or pretty good sized group of blind people, but there was still about 30 that some had canceled out. But they had about 30 blind people, and so what they did is took them on while the ship was empty, rather than getting a bunch of people that would wind up being in the way and slow the process down, and did an orientation for them first. And then we had a chance to watch the crew interact with these individuals, and they were very good. Sometimes you'd see them in places that you knew they shouldn't be. One time Cheryl went over and said, do you guys need some help? And they said, yeah, they just wanted to get to the elevator, because from the elevator they could figure out their route again. So she says, well, I'm in a wheelchair, just get a hold of the wheelchair and we'll go over there. So she let them. But that was the same way with the crew. They would you see them approach somebody, not touch them, just go up and approach them and then ask them. And then if they wanted help, it was funny. One day, this gentleman led two blind ladies, and he led them all through all these chairs. And I guess they didn't explain exactly what they want right away, but what they wanted was to sit on the edge of the pool and put their feet in the water. And so we finally found them a spot where that worked, so that they could do that. But again, it's like I said. I think cruising's far and away the most accessible way of traveling, because you and I talk about it all the time, but hotels are some of the worst. You just like
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. The only one of the exceptions I would say to that is if you're traveling with Tourism for All in Portugal or Spain. They do a beautiful job on land in a group. When I went with them in March of this year, the excuse me. When I went with them in March, they had everything laid out for us, and we had people on the bus who were both we had power chair users, we have manual chair users, and then we had somebody with Down syndrome. So we had a very diverse group of travelers, and they were able to accommodate everybody at their level for that entire trip. And it was just one of the most seamless vacations. I mean, it was kind of a work trip, but seamless trips I've ever had. We never once worried about whether or not the accommodation would be there, because we just knew that it would be.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've done some interviews with people that do it. There's a lady in Romania that does accessible tours, and then another lady in Italy. And I've reached out to her because we're going to wind up being in Livorno, and then we have an overnight on the ship in Civitavecchia. I had to think about it for a minute. And so I'm looking to see. But I was amazed. In fact, on the show last week, we looked at it. I was amazed. And by the way, I owe everybody some links. I hadn't forgotten. I just haven't gotten there yet. But the one thing that amazed me is in Italy and in Spain and along that area, I was in France. There are websites that have that show where there are accessible tours, and then you can just pull up all the different accessible tours. So that's one of the things I'll be working on, is trying to do some of those while we were there. Rhonda said that she agreed with us about liking cultural diversity, and C said that it'd be great for, it would, when everybody can not have to worry about it. And that's a big piece of it, is you still, especially hotels, some of them try, but some of them don't get very close. It's like, the difference between close and darts and close with a hand grenade. There's a little bit of difference in scale. Sorry, Kristy, I didn't mean to choke you up. But definition is just a little different.
Just a bit.
Yeah. Well, and so tell us a little bit about Travelability, because I know you work with Travelability, and you and I both work with Wheel the World. So tell us about Travelability, what you do with them, and what are some of the ways you work with places.
Well, Travelability it began as mostly trying to get destinations to create accessible landing pages for their website. And the focus has always been on our conference for the destination, to teach the destination and the hoteliers how to better accommodate families with disabilities, and how to create a website that provides useful information for those with disabilities. So that's really kind of how it began. And Jake Steinman, the founder of Travelability, is just brilliant in what he saw as a deep, deep need in the travel industry. And he acted at the right time in the right place, and has managed to bring people to the table in a very unique way, where we get to have these conversations. And now going forward, we'll also be doing a travel advisor training, as well as the destination training. So we're really growing and trying to bridge these gaps that we have in our communities. You have your travel advisors who want to do accessible travel, and they may learn about how to appropriately accommodate, but then they can't find the right tour operators. So we're aiming to bring all of these things together in a way that makes it easier for everybody to travel.
Yeah, and that's what I find is, and that's when the very trigger for Cheryl and I starting is we were going to Belize, to NCL's private island, and it was the same trip we held the sloths and played with the monkeys and stuff in Rotan, and they said they had beach wheelchairs on their website, and that was the sum total of the information that was available anywhere in that I could find. I mean, and I'm pretty good at searching for stuff. And I'm like, well, I have questions, where do you get it? What does it cost? What can you do with it? And so I'm like, well, I'm sure everybody else has these questions. And then as we were looking for accessible activities on like Roatan and other places we stopped, it became a real challenge to find the answers. And I have this conversation with every tourist board at when we were at Cruise World. Everybody that was there, I had that conversation with them about, you got to put a listing on your website, a tab, not some little thing down in the bottom corner where nobody can find it. Put it up at the top like you do for everything else, so that people can start to see this. And some of them say they're working on it. I'm not sure. I haven't. One of them I talked to at Cruise 360 in March or April, whenever it was, and I saw them again in October, and they still hadn't made any progress. I'm like, not so much. And Rhonda thought we were funny. But yeah, no, that is so important, and I love what Wheel the World's doing as well. Building the database of rooms that not only have, that they have accessible rooms, but very detailed information about accessibility. Because things that, a good example is you and I had a conversation about not Virgin Voyages, about MSC and accessibility. And I said they had a pool lift. And you said only on one pool and not on the big glass pool. And, I guess I have, I get to the point now I'm so hungry to see something that I am, I'm glad to see that. I don't look at the things they didn't, I just, at least you can get in one of the pools. And Cheryl used the pool. Of course, we trained their staff on how to use the pool lift, but
imagine saying that to anybody else.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Imagine saying that to the women. Well, at least you can get in that pool. It doesn't work, does it? So
no, I agree 100%. Yeah. And you got my attention with that. But I think it's true of most people with disabilities is you wind up getting used to the fact that you're not going to have the same access, and wind up settling for it because and I guess part of it is better now than it used to be.
Oh, absolutely. I think we've talked about my experience at a hotel in Las Vegas last year. It was a 1-year-old hotel, fully ADA compliant. I could not open the door to my room by myself without hurting myself because it was too heavy. I couldn't open and close the blinds. I couldn't reach the soaps in the shower. And I think there was something else. Oh, I don't remember what the other, I couldn't open any of the doors anywhere in the building in the public access areas. So for me, it was a pretty rotten trip. And on my last day, I'm checking out and I see another wheelchair user there. And I asked him, what do you think of this hotel? What have you thought of its accessibility? He goes, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's just absolutely fantastic. I can't believe how accessible it is. We've had a great experience. Night and day difference. And I asked him what he made it accessible. He said, the bed was the right height and the toilet was the right height. I asked him, well, what about the doors? Did you have any trouble? He goes, I can never open the doors. But I could get on and off the bed myself, and I could get on and off the toilet myself. Can you imagine if that was the only criteria that you had? Like, that's it. That's it. As long as I can do those, I don't need to open my own door. Unbelievable. Just our standards are so low. We're so used to the answer being no.
Yeah. And I agree 100%, Kristy. I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there. Go ahead.
That's it.
My ADHD kicks in and I'm like, ooh. I thought it was just I randomly associated. I didn't find out I had ADHD until I was 70, which explains a whole lot about my entire life, but now I understand why I did all those things I did and the way they happened, why things happen. But, it is one of those things that like I said, you just settle because it's better than it used to be. We're making improvement. and I look forward, to continuing. And I have the same kinds of conversations you have. And my favorite thing is to get the hotel manager and tell him what you need to do is get a wheelchair, spend a week in your hotel, using the rooms, using everything, and to see what you think of it, and see how easy it is. Because that's when you'll start to appreciate it. And where I got that idea was NCL did that with some of their officers on a ship that was going in for remodel. They made them some of them used a walker, some of them used a scooter, some of them used a regular manual wheelchair, and they had to use it all week long on the ship to get a feel for what it was really like. And I think that is such a good plan for everybody to start to do that.
Absolutely.
Because then you start to understand. And I think that's more than, maybe even more than seeing, it's that you understand that this doesn't work as well as you thought. I'm going to bet in that room, the shower was out of reach too.
Yes. I had to have them come lower it down for me. So
yes. And I'm like, I have that conversation every time I go have an accessible room and it's up there. I go into, if I can talk to the manager, I have that conversation. I'm like, goes at the bottom, not at the top. And it's a training thing. Oh,
but then I had.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but then I had just in one of my recent stays where I couldn't even reach the shower controls from the bench. So
that was at the far end of the wall.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about that. They think you got stretchy arms, rubber man or whoever.
They expect you to be traveling with a companion who can assist you. So, puppy.
Yeah, Rhonda knows what my pet peeve is, because my audience hears me vent about things. Because when I come back or when I'm doing a video, I point out these kinds of things that are like, please fix it. All right. Well, listen, I do want to chat with you after. I don't want you to get away from me, Kristy, but I do want to say goodbye to the audience. Everybody's been great. I appreciate all the comments. For those that haven't hit the like button and shared it, do me a favor. If you know somebody else that'll benefit from the channel and the information, share it. And I will get Kristy's information and get it in this, and I'll get the links in to yesterday's. I should be able to get that done tomorrow. I'm finally catching up. But I appreciate everybody for joining us. It's always such fun to have an audience and all the comments. And we'll see everybody in, I believe it'll be 2 weeks. I will let you know in both on YouTube and in the Facebook group about the second one, because we get off of the Ascent. Oh, I missed one cruise. I said I'm on the Ascent. We get off the Ascent, and we had basically 3 nights before we get on the Viva. So what we did was we booked Margaritaville at Sea, because I've never been on that. So I'm like, okay, it was cheaper than a hotel and meals.
Yeah.
I bet it's cheap for a reason, but
the reviews are, well, I mean, I'm looking forward to reading yours. We'll see.
We'll see. We have an accessible room, so at least in theory accessible. Anyway, we'll see everybody, and I'll let you know about the next 2 shows. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.